Hey, thank you for downloading. Welcome to Reality. I'm Ryan Mason. This episode, I talked to my wife, Nicole Torpy Mason, about Sister Wives, a show on TLC. We talked about season 13, episode 2 specifically. So if you're looking to go back and rewatch what exactly we are talking about, that's the episode that you would want to go and watch. You don't necessarily need to do that. If you're somebody who watches Sister Wives regularly, this is an opportunity for us to just kind of talk about the show as outsiders. Me, personally, I'm an outsider. And then Nicole has watched this show for like years and years and years. We were supposed to have a guest come and join us, but here in Wisconsin, it has been 50 degrees below zero. So the person that was going to join us was Greg Bach, who you can find on Instagram and Twitter at I am Greg Bach. He sent us an audio take that we edit into the episode. So that's super cool. You can listen to what he has to say about the episode as truly a person who has never seen this show before. And he's a barber, so he definitely may have a take about Cody's hair. If you're looking to follow us, give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter. Find me on Facebook if you would like. My upcoming shows will be, if you're listening to this before Wednesday, I'll be at Keg Stand Up at Lakefront Brewery on Wednesday. And then in the coming weeks, I'll be at Voyager at Landmark Lanes on the 12th of February. And then I'll be at Riverwest Film and Video for their live on-air comedy show on the 23rd of February. Greg is all over the place. You can find him in Naugatuck, Michigan, the UP, at Pasquale's next Friday, and at the Odyssey Fun Center in Sheboygan on that Saturday. Both shows he's opening for the very funny Carmen Morales, who will be in from Los Angeles, one of my favorite comedians. So without any further ado, please enjoy this episode about Sister Wives on Welcome to Reality. Hello, welcome to Reality. I'm Ryan Mason, and I'm here today with just my wife, Nicole.
Hi.
This week was crazy because of the polar vortex. We record out of Wisconsin, and it was 50 degrees below zero wind chill in Wisconsin, so getting anybody to leave their house this week was like a total nightmare, and everybody's cars died, and everybody was stuck in their place, which is great for watching reality TV, but it's not great for getting somebody over to your house. So this episode is going to be a little bit different. It's just going to be Nicole and I.
Yeah, we had no water also.
Yeah, we also had no water, so we lived in my parents' house for a couple of days, and the guest that we were going to have on, one of my good friends, Greg Bach, who is a hilarious comedian, a producer from Milwaukee Comedy, his car died and his battery died. So did mine. So, like, no shade. We made him watch an episode of Sister Wives that we watched also. Nicole, what episode was it?
It is season 13, episode 2, called Sister Wife Secrets. It's weird. It's a weird title.
Yeah, so what we want to do is, we want to talk about this episode that we watched because, A, it's a 2-hour episode, and I had to watch 2 hours of Sister Wives, and B, it's time sensitive, and we watched it. So, let's talk about it, and then Greg's going to send us his thoughts, and we'll try and edit those into the episode. We'll see if that works. So, listen to the whole episode. Maybe you'll hear those.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers to Greg, who watched 2 hours of Sister Wives, and
yeah, and may not have to talk about it. Yeah. But yeah, Greg will definitely be on in a later episode. Yes, and we'll make him watch some other.
Probably 2 more hours of Sister Wives just to
Yeah, we'll make him watch 4 hours of Sister Wives, and then he'll have to watch an hour of X on the beach, and then he'll jump off a bridge somewhere probably. Yeah. But no, Greg's a good sport, and he'll probably be totally fine with it. Knowing Greg, he's the type of person who loves to have something to talk about.
with people. He cuts hair. He's a comedian, so like he's always on his feet talking to people. So like giving him extra stuff to talk about, it's like not even that weird.
Oh, it's so sad that like he cuts hair and we have so much hair to talk about in this.
I know.
This group of folk.
Okay, yeah, good
Yeah, thank
fantastic
you.
transition. Yeah,
Thank you.
so the show that we're talking about is Sister Wives, which is on TLC.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Was it always on TLC?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sister Wives is on TLC, and it is a show about a very large family and a guy who's married to
4 women.
4 women.
Polygamous family.
Yes.
Can I also, really quick before you get into this, I've watched this show from the beginning, but I never, like, clocked what season it was, and so because of this show, I wrote down this season and the episode, and when I wrote season 13, I nearly had a heart attack.
13 seasons.
But it's not been 13 years, but I, like, had to wiki it, like, immediately, because I was like, have I been watching this show for 13 years? And I'm happy to report I have not been, but I am sad to report I have been watching the show for 8 years, so.
Okay.
You know.
We've been together for like 13 years.
Yeah.
So like that would be amazing if the show was like it was like we met the night we met, you watched your first episode of Sister Wives, and then like you just like you were so distracted by Sister Wives that I like conned you into like, you know, having 2 kids and getting married. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's how the show works, yeah. No. So Sister Wives, I guess like the show is to me. Yeah, let's talk about like what Sister Wives is.
Well, why don't you give your impressions of it? Because again, I have been watching the show from the beginning, so.
Okay, so the show is about a man who is married to 4 women.
Yeah.
And so when I initially heard about this show from my wife, my first thought was like crazy, like Mormon lifestyle, outside of like normal Mormon people who are generally pretty normal. Like I grew up with Mormon people, so I always thought of them as just like they're just like really Catholic people, you know, like they have big families, they throw get-togethers.
They're not Catholic.
No, but like I always thought that was kind of how they operated, because they always were like going to church and like they were always, you know, they had like lots of ceremonial like type of things that they did in their lives. Like one of my best friends growing up was Mormon, so I was like, oh, this show is just about like what it's like to be Mormon. And that's not really what the show's about. Then my second thought when it was like, oh, it's a Sister Wives show, because of the time that it came out, I thought that it was maybe going to be about like the Warren Jepps and like the sort of sections of Mormonism that are untoward and are like the dark side of Mormonism.
Sure.
Like, which is just scary weirdos. Like the same with like there's scary weirdos, Catholic weirdos out there, right?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's kind of what I thought this show would be. It would either be like this like really wholesome portrayal of Mormon people, or it would be like a really scary portrayal of like like the extreme Mormonism.
I mean, you just thought there'd be like a reality show about like child brides.
Well, yeah, I kind of thought that's what it would be, because I wouldn't. First of all, I wouldn't put that past TLC. They would totally do that.
Fair.
Like they do 90 Day Fiancé.
They're all adults on legally, they're all adults.
I would love to see.
There was that last season of 90 Day Fiancé that was questionable about the one, but
I would watch a show of the person who has to check birth certificates on 90 Day Fiancé. The person who's like, so you sure you're from Sri Lanka?
Okay,
all right, what's a Sri Lankan birth certificate look like? Yeah, for sure. No, but
I don't know which. Okay.
But this show is different than what I ever would have expected.
Yeah.
Sister Wives is a show that is actually really wholesome. It's about family, and it's about all the struggles that families go through. It's just that this family is a lot bigger and non-traditional in the sense that there are more than one wife.
Right.
Like,
yeah. It actually is like a very wholesome show in a weird way.
The most surprising thing about Sister Wives is that it's actually not sketchy.
Yeah.
Like that's the number one thing. If people were like, "What surprised you about Sister Wives?" I would be like, "Well, I saw this guy's haircut, and I saw his like
could you describe
his soul patch." Okay, so the lead character in the show, I would say he's like the main character of the show. His name is Cody. He's the man. He's the man of the house, the patriarch of the family, and he has the 4 wives, and he looks like God, I don't even know how to describe him. He looks like the lead singer of a cover band.
Yeah, like he's like a '90s hippie who grew up,
right,
and is in charge of a family now.
He's not a bad looking guy. I don't think like people.
No, I mean he's fine. I mean,
yeah, but he has weird hair. He has like I'm a cool religious guy haircut.
He definitely has like cool pastor hair.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, he has like youth pastor haircut for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And in this episode in particular, he has like an undershave. This would have been perfect for you, Greg Bach.
I mean, it is okay. So he's always had this long hair, and he definitely has this like receding hairline. So this season, he really like tried to adjust the like long hair by giving himself an undercut.
Yes.
And I don't necessarily have an issue with it, but like,
who would you say he looks like? Whose hair? He looks like if Matthew McConaughey had a more receding hairline and an undershave, which is like, imagine Matthew McConaughey without like any sort of style and
I mean, just okay. I mean, if I had to say what he looked like, I would say it's very like soccer player, like.
Sure, like German soccer player kind
of. Yeah, like
yeah.
It's you're just
but
like,
he's not
what
like,
is this haircut? I don't really understand.
He's not bad looking. He just has a goofy haircut, and he kind of owns it, which is fine.
Yeah, he was like tweeting a lot about like how he was like, man, this was a bad choice of haircut, and it only gets worse this season. Like he had a good sense of humor about it. And
yeah, he has a good sense of humor. So the construct of the show, Nicole, why don't you tell us like what the construct of the show is? Who are the four wives?
Yeah,
and
so
who is Cody?
So I've sort of dabbled in like trying to figure out what Cody does for a living, and I do not really get it because he somehow manages to like support 4 separate families. The one thing that's interesting though, I will say, is like in the beginning, like the first season is like him courting Robin, the 4th wife. So the beginning of the show, Robin is not married to
He
them.
shows up with 3 wives.
He starts the show with 3 wives,
in the
and
first
then now
season he marries the 4th wife.
But so there's Cody, his very first wife.
By the way, I remember when you watched the first season of it, and she was like legit banging back in the day. Like she's a very striking woman, like for sure. But like in that, she's had like 9 children since then, probably. I mean, but like she I remember
kids.
that first season, I was
kids.
like, holy smokes, this
She had
gal
3 kids when they first started dating, so she'd already had 3 kids by then. But
and not that that's like where her worth comes from, but
yeah,
I just remember being like, this
all women's worth comes from what they look like.
No, but like I remember watching that and being like, this guy already has 3 wives, and then like this 4th wife comes in, and I'm like, oh dang.
And she was significantly younger than the rest of them.
She's significantly younger, and she was very good looking when she came in. And they were on TV for the first time ever. Yeah. And I can't imagine how those wives like must have felt about that.
I mean, that was sort of the first 2 seasons of it. Was like that.
It was very interesting. So I would say like if you were, I remember you watching that and being like, this is very interesting. Like, that is an interesting part of the show.
Yeah. So the first wife is Mary, and she and Cody were legally married. So the big thing is that he can't be legally married to 4 women. So.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So, like, because of the laws in America. So him and Mary were legally married. They are not any longer, and we can go into that later if you're interested in that. It doesn't matter, but...
yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And then Janelle is his second wife, Christine is his 3rd wife, and Robin is the 4th wife. And there is, like, some weird... hierarchy-ish, like, and they've gone into that in previous seasons about... like where you stand as first wife versus 4th wife, and like what that means, and like there isn't supposed to be, but in sister wife families there is sort of.
It's a lot like Game of Thrones. You win or you die.
No.
You sit on the Iron Throne, and he or she who sits on the throne. Yeah.
It is interesting though because they are like just very, very normal, and they do talk a lot about. So they cannot be part of the mainstream LDS church because they do not recognize.
Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, the LDS Church does not recognize people who are
plural marriage.
Yeah, so they are not allowed to be part of that church. But they also are very against like the Warren Jeffs of the world. So they aren't.
I think
part
most
of that.
people are against Warren Jeffs.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things where like when people bring up like the really terrible sides of religion.
Are they against like
terrible
child
people?
brides?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, of course they are. Yes.
So I think that's what people see in the media as they see like that side of things. So when you first turn on Sister Wives, what I am struck by when you turn on Sister Wives when we're watching it, it's just how boring their life is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like how normal it is.
Yeah.
It's like we had a picnic and everybody came over and we had to figure out how to feed everyone. And it turns out the best deal was to go to Arby's.
There's Buffalo Wild Wings in
there.
That
There's
actually
Buffalo Wild
did look
Wings in this
delicious.
episode. But like that's kind of the stuff they deal with in some of the episodes. And then there are larger issues that get dealt with in the episodes as well. So like for instance, this show has dealt with topics like how a religious family deals with a gay LGBT like child.
One of the kids is gay.
How to deal with one of the people in the show was catfished.
Yeah.
One of the wives was catfished in sort of a romantic relationship online, non-sexual romantic relationship. They dealt with moving because of being sort of like religious persecution in some ways. Like the state they were in did not allow them to stay there when they were in the state of Colorado?
No. So it's really weird because so they were living in Utah, and Utah has some pretty strict rules about polygamy because of the whole Mormon and
right
stuff.
Like you have to be a polygamist or you have to ride a snowboard, one of the two, but not both.
And I think you have to always have a dog with you as
the Utah state flag is just a guy on a snowboard holding hands with two ladies in like really long dresses.
And they have a really cool dog with
and
them.
then John Stockton giving like a peace sign.
And so, like I said, he's not legally married to he's legally married to Robin, the fourth wife, which is which is unique. Typically,
because their kids are the youngest. That's what makes the most sense.
No, so what happened was he was legally married to Mary, which typically if they explain this, you're legally married to the first wife, and then you do this like private ceremony, which they've never shown on TV. It's kind of a private thing with their religion. But Robin had been married previously, and it was sort of an abusive relationship. They haven't really gone into the details, but she had some children whose father has not been in the picture. And Cody,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Cody wanted to legally adopt them, and the easiest way was for him to be married to her, because it's really difficult to adopt a child of a woman when you're married to a different woman, and it's really weird.
Right.
And Mary and Robin are actually very close, and Mary like surprised her by saying like, "I'm going to divorce him, and I would like you to marry him." And it was like actually a very sweet and like lovely gesture.
That's so much information to wrap your head around. So you're saying that like Cody was married to his first wife,
right?
She had kids from a person before.
Wait, so no. So Cody and Mary, his first wife, were legally married. Everybody else is married through like a private religious ceremony. It's not legal because you can't be legally married to more than one person. Robin had been legally married to a person prior to Cody.
Oh,
they had children. They had been divorced.
His fourth wife, okay.
Yes. And then her original husband was like very abusive, wasn't in the picture.
This is a really good point to make, that like I could never have 4 wives because I can barely listen to one wife.
The point is, it was a very sweet gesture of Mary. It's like culturally in this, they explained that culturally in this, you marry your first wife and then legally, and then the rest of them are just like, because it's a very dangerous position to be in, to not be married with your children and all that. So culturally, you wouldn't, so it was a very sweet gesture of Mary to do that.
But there is a culture around sister wives and their type of religion. So they're not the only ones. We see other families and friends on the show. And they're not terribly weird either, I should say.
No.
They tend to actually be pretty normal.
Yeah.
And we should say that this podcast is just a call to anybody to become a sister. No, it's weird because like when you talk about it, I'm like, this should be super strange. But when you watch this show, you're like, it's not very strange. These people seem pretty cool. If they lived on my block, I'd be like, yeah, that guy has 4 wives, and I wouldn't like even bat an eye at it, because he's not that weird. He's actually a pretty normal dude.
I mean, he's kind of a dork. But...
Yeah, he's kind of a dork. He's like the type of dad who you'd be like, oh, they're slacklining in the backyard. Like, that's the kind of dude he is.
You know what? The one thing I will say though, about
they're playing
that
beach game.
He's got like 18 kids, and like they're all like starting to get married and whatever, and like I swear, like every single episode of this show is them moving somebody.
Yeah, that's
and like
true.
that is like that's the worst part of
that's the biggest.
Because they're all going to college and whatever. Like they are literally moving somebody every single episode, and it just seems like a nightmare.
Don't you just buy wouldn't you just buy like one house in Provo, Utah, and be like, okay, you're all going to go through this house?
Again,
probably somebody's done that.
Yeah, I was mentioning. So they had to leave Utah because they were going to prosecute him as a polygamist, and they moved even though he's not legally married. And he's supporting all of his children financially. Yeah. I don't know how you prosecute.
But the state prosecutes that.
Yeah, and I don't know how you prosecute someone for that. It doesn't seem
cool. Really cool job.
So they moved to Vegas because Vegas is like, come on in, we don't give a shit, you know.
Vegas is like, look, we are. People know us for two things: gambling and
not giving a shit.
Imagine Dragons.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, and Guy Fieri.
Yeah, and Guy Fieri.
Come on
Those are the three things.
The water here is fine. So so they live in Vegas now, which they don't love, but you know what have you, but.
Okay, so let's talk about
let's
this
talk
episode.
About the episode.
Let's take a break for 1 second. We'll be right back.
Hey, gang. So this is probably as good a time as any to put some audio in from our guest who is going to join us live for this podcast recording, but couldn't because it was 50 degrees below zero. So Greg Bach sent me an audio file of his take on Sister Wives and the show and the specific episode that we watched. So you can check out more information about Greg Bach through MilwaukeeComedy.com and definitely follow him on Instagram and Twitter. I believe his Instagram is I am Greg Bach. But yeah, check him out. He's a great follow. He's politically active. He's somebody who has a really strong voice in the comedy community here in Milwaukee as well. So without any further ado, here's Greg Bach's take on Sister Wives.
So watching this episode was very interesting. I'd never heard of this show until this podcast, and I was very shocked to find out there were 12 seasons and like 150 episodes. It kind of, I don't know, boring, but that's, you know, a real reality. I mean, it's just people living their lives. The catfishing turn of the first half of the episode was interesting because it just seemed like the child really did not want to talk about it, even though she was being forced to by the mother, which I believe was Mary. But it was a very Mary-centric episode, but trying to get her to talk about it by bringing the friend in, and that was just completely uncomfortable because at no point did it need to happen, and it seemed like they flew her all the way in from somewhere to really just try to make the daughter finally have empathy for the mother, and I don't think it ever happened, and I don't think it was necessary, but you know, that seemed like kind of selfish on Mary's part. And then the whole thing with the bed and breakfast was very interesting because, you know, they told her, you know, we're not going to give you money for it, so she went and did it herself, which I think was absolutely fine, and I personally I think is good, because in this situation, I don't know, you know, maybe from the outside, never being a part of any sort of polygamy type of community, I think to myself, well, if they're not going to help you, then you have something in case something happens to this whole situation. But she went ahead and did it herself, and I actually kind of thought that was awesome. I loved that interaction between her and her family, and especially the way her family completely appreciated them getting this house back for them. But then when everyone finds out she closed, I was, you know, maybe she didn't share it with them, but they took it really, really hard, and to me a little too seriously, because they knew that she wanted to do this, and they knew that she was going to do this, and she did it without their help. And, you know, it just got very passive aggressive after a while. And I just wanted Mary to stand up and go, yeah, I don't need any of you. You didn't want to give me your help, so why would I involve you in the first place? So it's just a very interesting show, and very interesting because I felt like with a show called Sister Wives on such a topic, it would be far more action, if you will, because I feel like when people talk about reality shows, which by the way, I don't watch reality shows at all. This was the first one I've ever sat down and purposely watched. I feel like there's always something happening, like high action, high drama, but this one seemed like the drama of a regular family. Just happens to be 4 wives, a husband, and 5,000 children apparently. But nothing different than what I've seen in, personal life, actually, and to see the drama of our friends and family around us. So I don't know. It was interesting. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, but I thought it was an interesting watch, and I did like seeing them speaking on the evolution of individuals in the Mormon Church regarding homosexuality. That's always a good thing to see. That's always positive. That as these individuals who are getting into their 40s and 50s are getting older and maybe control the church, they can do away with the older thought of however they see children and, how they want to love. And I actually really, really liked that part of the show. So, God, am I a fan now? Oh, God, no. Please, what did you do to me?
Okay, we are back. That break was so I could go pee and fill my glass of wine. But before we get into the episode, I just want to break down who the actual characters to this show are. So Nicole, we already talked about Cody, but let's break down the wives. We talked about Robin, who's the youngest and most recent wife, but let's start from the top. Who is like Mary's number one, right?
Yep. So Mary is the first wife. I don't really know how to describe. Mary has very severe eyebrows.
In this episode, she has really severe eyebrows.
Always.
She's more tan than the other wives.
Very tan.
She's an introvert. She tends to be the one who's more on her own sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think that any of the... I think they're all pretty intelligent. There's nobody that on this show that I would describe as like a dumb person or somebody that is... shot within the show as like a heel. So most of the people on the show are treated pretty straight up, and Mary's the type of person who says what she thinks and tends to not hide very much. So,
and I would say her storyline is she had one child only.
Yes.
And that seems to be a point of struggle for her. She was unable to have more than one child, and specifically as a
Mormon
person, that was a struggle for her. And that's kind
if you're
of
a Mormon, you're supposed to have like 1,000 kids.
And being around 3 other women who have had like gajillion kids, that was always a point of struggle for her.
Wild. Yeah. When I say she doesn't hide very much, I mean like when she does talk, she's very blunt about it. She does recede into herself sometimes. Like there are points in the show where people are like, "You're not telling us all the things you're thinking." So there is a little bit of that on the show where they're like, "Why aren't you telling us more about your goals and stuff like that?" We can talk about that later. But okay, so so she's the first wife. Yep. Who's the second wife?
So Janelle is the second wife. She is so there's 2 blonde. The middle 2 are blonde.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who's a little bit bigger, a little shorter.
Okay.
She is a little more quiet.
Did she have like the branded clothes?
Yeah, she has the branded clothes.
She does like a women's like sort of talk type of thing.
She does something in the sense of like,
they all have like their own businesses.
Yeah, she like helps. She's like a consultant that helps women start their own business. Okay. I don't really know a lot of the details of it, but that's what she does. She and Mary don't get along super well. They don't like hate each other. They just aren't super close.
It's weird because the dynamic of the show is kind of like an office where like if you worked in an office that has like 5 women in it, you're like, this person doesn't like that person, but they get along. It's part of the office.
They have to work together, but
they have to work together. Yeah. So like it's kind of the way their marriage works.
Yeah.
Only like he sleeps in the bed with all of them. Yeah. And they don't really talk about that, but I find that to be very strange.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's Janelle.
Yep.
And then there's
Christine is the third one, and she is the very, very outspoken one.
Yeah, like she's the A-type. She's very alpha.
Yeah, she's very alpha. She is.
She's like PTA mom, like you know what I mean. Like if you're like, oh, that's that's Lindsay's mom, and she's at everything that goes on at school, in a good way, in a bad way, like she's just there. She's very present.
Yeah, it's her strength and her weakness.
Yeah. I think, and she seems pretty aware of it too. That she's like pretty alpha. Also, she seems nice. She seems like a nice person. In my mind, I don't think that she's
I
like,
think they're all
I don't think any of them are, like, off-putting in a way that would be, like, unsettling. Which is
No,
weird.
no,
Which is one of the
no.
weirdest parts about this show. When we watch so much reality TV, you watch Real Housewives of New Jersey, you're like, oh, this person is... There's at least one person on every episode of like a Bravo show where you're like, this is a garbage person. And
Yeah, like I think maybe one of these people might not be your cup of tea, but none of them would you be like, I couldn't stand being in a room with this person.
Yeah,
like
they're
you'd be
all
fine
like,
with all of them.
they're
I mean,
all
yeah.
reasonably tolerable, which is so weird for a reality show. When you watch a reality show, I'm so used to, if it's an MTV show, especially if it's a VH1 show, if it's a Bravo show, I'm like, okay, I am mad at this show because my wife is making me watch it. At least there's something I can hate while I watch it.
Actually, I would say
this show doesn't have that.
The person who's the most, for me, the person I would least likely to be like, Cody, I think is
Cody
is the most off-putting.
Well, as a guy, I would say that like I find him tolerable because I would be like, man, you know, when you're like, boy, my wife really is getting on my nerves. This guy has 4 wives.
I know. I mean, he's tolerable. There's just like there's sometimes like, and there was a point in the show. I think it was this episode where he there's sometimes where he like drops things that are like that are like misogynist and like. It always like bugs me and like
Christine, or a little
yeah.
patriarchal or a
yeah,
little
and
bit old
that's
school.
just like I think that's
he talked about how his daughters were dressing a little bit non-matronly. They were dressing I don't know what they said.
He said it's like a biblical term and I can't remember what he said.
Modesty. They were talking about modesty.
Yeah,
and he was like, I don't want my daughters to dress.
And they were
immodest.
dressing totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even like kind of immodest.
It was probably salacious for Parkland, Utah, or wherever they are.
I mean,
Parkland, what was it called?
No, they're in Vegas.
No, where was in Utah where they were? I forget the name of the place in Utah. Not Provo. Where her bed and breakfast was.
Oh, Parowan?
Parowan.
But that's not where they live. They live
Well,
in
I'm saying
Vegas.
in Parowan, Utah, that would be like...
But still, I mean, they were dressed in like cute little like spring dresses.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing, and that's what like irks me about him. He'll say stuff like that.
Wait, you're too feminist for a guy who has 4 wives and lives in Utah?
Look, he lives in Vegas again, and like if he wants to bone zone 4 women, like and everyone's down.
Do you think they bone zone? Like that's a good point. So you were like, do you think that they are sexually active? Like all of them?
No, him and Mary are not. They've kind of said that.
Okay, they said that on the show.
Yeah.
That seems way too personal for this show.
They've alluded to it. I mean, they haven't said that, but they've alluded to it.
That's odd. That's part of what the
because of the catfishing thing.
Okay, so let's get in the episode then.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens in the episode is that Mary.
Well, let's start. So they start out by going to this picnic with their family, and all 4 wives are there, and Mary has brought a friend.
Yes, and Mary's friend is a person who was catfished. If you don't know what catfishing is, it's where a person is like sort of like courted on the internet by a subject that might be a fake enterprise or a fake like person, and then they try and get information out of you and extort money or information.
Well, the idea is that that you think you're dating someone and the person has lied about who they were, and so Mary was quote unquote dating someone. And that person turned out to be a woman who was she did not think she was dating a woman. She thought she was.
Do we know what the intention of the person who was doing that was?
So, it's a little vague. Essentially, it seems as if it was an emotional affair. She never met...
But the person on the other end, was it like on purpose? They knew who she was?
It seems as if that was the case. That
they knew she was that person.
That they knew she was Mary from this show because at some point, they came to her and said, now that I have all this information from you, I'm going to sell this story to people or whatever, unless you give me money, unless you... I don't know exactly what it was.
And that's when they went live.
And so Mary and their family decided to go to the press with it and say this is what happened to us because they did not want to be
like David Letterman kind of.
Yeah, essentially. And so they kind of and it's really strange because they talk about this, but they never really address the idea that Mary essentially cheated on him. I mean, like it was an emotional affair. For sure, and she never met the person. The person is not real.
But we don't. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen over the computer that would be like.
And I don't.
Not cool.
Yeah, and I don't know what the.
Yeah, they don't talk about that on the show.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. The show like goes along these lines of being like really wholesome and being like, oh, these people all seem really normal, and then when they get to this situation, it's like a real hiccup in the show because it's like, okay, well, what happened? Did she like? Okay, I'm gonna say like a gross thing, but like, did she like have
Like
sex
sexed?
in front of them, or like
I don't
do a
believe
thing
so.
like a weird thing, like, you know, and that is never addressed on the show. And I think the way that they treated it is like, of course, she would never do such a thing, but in the confines of reality, we know that like catfishing someone, it's about getting information that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I really don't believe so. This stuff came out in the press prior to like maybe 2 seasons ago, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out prior to the season where she told her family, and it was really weird because she told her family while it was being filmed, and so it was like it had come out.
It was super personal.
She told her family before it came out in the press, but it came out before the show aired, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like this weird thing, but it sounds as if it was very emotional and very like I love yous and things like that, but I don't think there was any like
you don't think there was like
I don't think there's like nude pictures or any I don't think there was anything like that.
That would have been released probably.
Yeah, I think
okay. So there's a person who's at this picnic who also was catfish.
By the same woman.
By the same woman? I didn't even know that. So with Mary, and then that person is put in a room with Mary's daughter.
Well, before we get to that, I just want to say, the last episode, Mary has met a woman who was catfished by the same woman, and that woman has met the family, and this is a second person who was catfished by the same person. So Mary has met numerous women who have been catfished by this same woman pretending to be a man. So it's always been pretending to be a man. I don't know that it matters. I don't care. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But so this woman came to meet the family. I don't really know. I guess Mary's like trying to prove that like she wasn't an idiot. I don't really know why.
She's not alone. This person's a professional. Like she's trying to do this.
Yeah, I don't really know why she wants. Why do you think she wants her family to meet the other victims of this catfish?
I think it's to like make her story more relatable. So that it's like, see, this can happen to a lot of people. This person's not an idiot. I'm not an idiot. Like we're not alone. I think that's what it is. It doesn't work though. In the confines of the show, they're just like this other lady shows up who was also catfish, and it seems like Mary is saying like, "Hey, here's another person she's pretty cool, and she also got catfish," and you're like, actually, it's two uncool people that I'm looking at right now.
But do you think that like that even matters at this point? Like,
no, I don't.
Shouldn't you just say like, "I'm sorry," and like,
I'm sorry.
Let's fix our relationship and move on? Like, does it matter how many people this person catfished?
Or our relationship is broken to the point where me getting catfished is a wake-up call that I need to make serious changes in my life.
Right, like who cares how many
That's more where I see Mary at, is like she did this thing, she pursued an online relationship with a person outside of her husband, and she got caught up in a thing that was very serious and could have affected other people in her life, and then that's what's really interesting about this reality show. That was what was really interesting in the last season. This particular scene's not really interesting.
It's really boring.
Yeah, it's super boring.
But there are two things I want to bring up about this scene. I know we've been discussing this catfish situation, and it's kind of boring, and I recognize that. Two things that are important about the situation. Please discuss this woman's...
Her shirt.
Please.
Her shirt
You were really hung up by this shirt, and I really want you to discuss it.
So the lady who's with her, her name is... I don't know her name, but her shirt, her catfish buddy... on this show, she's a Southern gal, so she's got like real pulled back pony, like tight ponytail, and she's wearing a shirt that says "Love God," and then under that it says "Sweet Tea," and then under that it says "and the SEC," meaning the Southeastern Conference, which is a football conference for people who only watch reality TV and don't watch football. The SEC is the best football conference in the United States. It's where all the best football players come from. But this shirt just says, "Love God, Sweet Tea, and the SEC." And the fact of the matter is, there's not a lot of commas in this.
Commas really confused me, and I want to say as someone who does not watch football, when I read that, I thought it meant like
it just says sec. It looks like it says sec.
I thought it was a church
and
thing.
Sec.
Like,
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a really bizarre shirt. It looks like it just says, first of all, we can't tell if it says "Love comma God, or if it's like love God, like that's an order, okay? Love God, like love God, and then the next line is sweet tea, like right. So it's like sweet tea. I would assume those are together, right? Sweet tea, because it's the sound sweet tea.
Yeah.
Because it would be really strange if it was love comma God, and then it was like sweet tea, no comma, right? Because you would read it as love comma God and then sweet comma tea, which would be like love, God, sweet, tea, and the SEC, which is bizarre. Also,
no, it's like love. Wait.
But even if
is it like from God, love?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But let's say you are really religious. Like, let's say you are somebody who's like really religious, and you're from the South, and you're like love, God, and I'm like, okay, so far so good. I'm a religious person. I get your shirt so far. And then the next line is like sweet tea. I'd be like, okay, that's a beverage we drink. Okay, a little bit different levels than like my religion that I celebrate.
Sure.
And then the next thing that was like a football conference.
Okay, but
not just like football, but a conference.
But also, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't love God on the same line?
Yes.
And that's where it gets confusing, because if you wanted to say these are the three things in life that I love, if you said love, next line God, next line sweet tea, and the SEC, then like that would make sense. But it was like love God, sweet tea, SEC.
Okay, so like just to put this in perspective, for Nicole. Nicole,
I did not know what the SEC was.
If this is Nicole, this is what it would be for Nicole.
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
it would be like love, my kids, iced coffee, Bravo TV. Like that's what it would be. It would be a weird shirt.
In that order.
In that exact order. What would mine be? Do you know what mine would be? Mine would be like Wine God.
Wait, like Wine God, Dionysus?
Dionysus, I don't know.
Is Wine God one thing? See, there's the comma problem
Wine
again.
comma God. It'd be like Wine comma God. NBA. The NBA.
The NBA.
I don't know what my middle one would be.
Wait. Again, is Wine God one thing?
It's love
God, wine, and the NBA.
Oh God, it would have to be like love
wine,
Twitter,
God. No,
wine,
you don't love Twitter.
and
Nobody
TNT.
Loves Twitter.
That's probably
TNT?
what it would be. Like we're in the
Bombs?
NBA. Yeah. Okay, so
where are we?
We're way off.
Here?
But the meeting that she has with this catfish lady is with her daughter, Mary's daughter, who is gay, and she brings her partner. And this is one of the cool parts about the show is like she's not ostracized from the show.
Yeah.
She brought her mom and some of the sister wives to the Women's March in DC
last season. Yeah.
Last season,
it was really sweet.
Which is actually one of the cooler
and
episodes.
And they did not
want
to go, and it was weird, and it wasn't weird. They were not comfortable with it, and they went, and it was very sweet of them.
Yeah, I would recommend
really,
that
really
episode for people who are like new to the show, and you're like, oh, I don't know what to think about this show. I don't know what to think about like really religious people. I'm not into that. Check that episode out because it sheds a little light on the idea that like people can give towards their kids, right? Like their kid actually is changing them towards more liberal causes, which we're pretty liberal. So I thought that part was pretty cool.
Wait, can I just back us up really quick? There is one more thing about that picnic, and we don't have to go.
Let's talk about it.
We don't have to go through like.
Are you talking about the tackle?
Yes, and we don't have to go through this whole thing because let's be honest. A lot of this show is 2 hours long, and a lot of it is very boring, and that's fine.
The house buying shit's super boring.
Yeah, and we can power right through the house buying shit, except for there's a couple things I want to talk about with that. But there is a point in the picnic scene where Christine is like razzing Cody because they're trying to find a place to sit. And again, this is a very normal like husband-wife moment where they've found a place to sit and to eat, and he's just like, this isn't the place to eat. It's just like, I can find a better place for us to eat. And she's like razzing him because she's just like, we have like 18 children.
Right.
Let's sit down and eat food.
Yeah, just to find somewhere where their whole family can fit.
Yeah, and he's like, I can find a better place, and she's kind of razzing him or whatever. And so Mary makes a joke Christine makes a joke about that, and Mary's like, I think I can find a better place, and they're kind of like teasing each other. And then Mary takes off running, and like as a joke to find a better location, and Christine's like, I'm gonna tackle you. And then she like legit tackles her.
Yeah, she like hunts her down and like tackles her. Like legit tackles her.
Like adult.
It's one of the most funny parts of the show. They are like
it was wild.
Yeah, it was wild. Number one, like if one of my family members tackled me, I'd be like, we'd probably have like a fist fight. You know what I mean? Like it would be like real.
I gotta tell you, I loved that moment.
I did too.
Because
I was like, they actually cared about each other.
Mary is so serious so much of the time, and it was like really lovely to see her just like have fun and be silly.
Yeah.
And like Janelle was like, no, I'm sorry, Christine. Christine was like, I'm gonna, and like there was like a point of Christine where she was just like, I'm gonna get her. Like,
yes.
Because Christine is very, very competitive, and there was that moment, but it was also like in good jest. But that was a legit tackle.
Also, one of the funniest parts about this is that, like, imagine your mom. Like, my mom is 59 years old, and she's amazing. And
59 years young.
59 years young. But imagine, like, your mom is 59 and she's like, I'm going to go tackle that person. Okay, now imagine you have two moms and they're both 59 and one's like, I'm going to sprint, and the other one's like, I'm going to tackle that woman. You would be like, I'm so embarrassed, I can't move. And all the kids, as they watch this, are just like entranced. They're like, our moms are chasing each other in a meadow and they're going to tackle each other. And then they do. And it's funny,
and
like, for the cameras.
And like, no joke.
It's funny.
It was a serious tackle.
Yeah,
though.
she like
it was
lays
not
her
a
out.
joke.
Yeah, which is funny. So like that moment is probably
that was really fun.
That's really like the one laugh out loud moment of the show, like in this episode in particular. Like, and then they have their little catfish meeting, which
that was so
we said,
boring. I mean,
so
I'm
boring.
sorry.
It should be way funnier. It should be way more lighthearted. But it just isn't.
There was one point, so basically it was Mary's daughter and her partner talking to Mary and the person she brought, Christy, I think her name was.
Right.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. But like, I do want to say that Christy came, had her hair and nails done because she knew she was going to be on TV, and like she put like a pink highlight in her hair.
Is that the Sweet Tea?
Yeah. And by the way,
in the SEC,
she wore that shirt the entire episode.
Yeah. I think it was like
it had to have been
4
like
days.
1 day. I mean, gosh, it was crazy. But anyway, so let's move on because that was boring. But like,
okay, so let's just move on to the last.
Essentially, the rest of the episode was
that Mary is buying a house in a small town in Utah. Parowan, Utah. So Parowan, Utah is a really small town in Utah, and she's buying this house that was like a family home to her family. Which has been a part of this LDS church for a long time. This was an original home to her family. It would be like if your family moved to the United States and this was the first house they came to, and it was in the West. That was this house for her family, and so it has like a lot of emotional importance for her. But also there's an emotional importance to it because she may be leaving the family, maybe leaving the sister wives. She may be the first one to be like, I'm kind of done here. I had this emotional relationship outside of my husband. We're not sleeping together anymore. We're not, like, I don't have any more kids that are in the house.
That's the underlying drama.
That's the underlying drama of this.
Season.
So that's where the drama of this
denies
episode comes
that.
from. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Do you think that's true? I think she's out. I think she's, like, full out. I think she, like, doesn't want to be a part of this anymore. And that she would love to have a place to go hide.
I think she would love that. I think, honestly, it is a weird... I think part of it isn't necessarily that she doesn't want to be... I don't know. I go back and forth. Again, this is dark and weird, but she had one kid, and I think it really is hard for her to be around all these people who had multiple children who are still having kids. I mean, Robin had a kid, like, last year.
But it's a big family. They're supposed to all be part of the same family.
But and she always wanted to have more children, and she just, whatever. And I feel like she feels like she's just there, and I don't know. I feel like she's just like,
what am I supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's so hard.
What would you do if you were her? What would you do if you were Mary?
I would I'd get a dog.
And live in Utah with like your tons of family. Or Nevada.
Yeah, I'd get a dog.
It seems like she wants to be in that house in Utah and like have her own thing. I would do that. I would do that. Like, she wants to get away from
I think it'd be hard.
Cody.
Well, first of all, like, it's hard for me because I do think she's really close with the other children.
But I don't think she's super close with Cody anymore.
No, I don't think so. But I do think she's close with the other children. Like, they showed there was a clip on the show this
And I think she's
episode.
close to some of the wives.
She's I know she's really close with Robin, but they showed a clip of her with and they've shown in other episodes that she's really close with a lot of the other children, and like she has a really close relationship with a lot of the other children. So like the idea that she just like not be part of their life anymore is like, I don't think that's a thing. I think she really cares about.
Yeah, I mean, even if she left the family to like kind of live on her own, I think she would always have a tie to the family, and like that they have this emphasis on like keeping her close within the same cul-de-sac. To me, seems a little. That's where the religious side starts to get untoward, where it's like you have to be here, you have to be right next to us.
And they've said many times that like Mary, Christine, I think, and Janelle all come from families who were plural families, and their mothers didn't necessarily have the kind of relationships that
okay, so they were in plural marriages, but they all kind of lived separately.
Their moms their moms were sister wives. So like they had said like they were not close with their sister wives. Like some of like I think like one of them said like they were like one of like their mom was like one of like 15 or something. Like they were just like like they were like of the old school like 20 like I think it's God, I'd have to look this up. But I think
where it's like it was a church, but it was just like
like Christine's. I think it's
so
Christine's
bizarre.
mom was like married to like one of the like a Warren Jeffs level like a big time guy who like had like 20 wives or something, you know, like so she.
That's bananas.
Yeah,
like,
so like she didn't
there.
like have a close relationship with her siblings or with her, you know, like because there was just like thousands of them, you know, like so they had a very different relationship to sister wives and stuff like that. Where like now they are close with their sister wives and with their sister wives' kids and things like that. But anyway, like
we didn't talk about it, but like the daughter that is like left the family to live her life with a partner who is another woman.
Yeah, she didn't leave the family; she just grew up. I mean,
she grew up. She
went to college. And,
yeah. Like that. I'm sure that idea that you just described is so crazy to her. That
to the daughter's partner?
to the daughter and to the daughter's partner that like that must be really tough to deal with.
I don't know. I wonder though, like if you grew up in Utah, do you know like do people know people who are like?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. I don't know. That's a weird thing. I feel like I'm a pretty like accepting person, pretty liberal person, like accepting of all walks of life.
Yeah.
But if I talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, my mom is one of 15 sister wives, I would be like, that's wild. I can't understand that. I don't know how to pick that up. And like, I'm sure if I told somebody that like, oh, I live in a place that sometimes it's 50 degrees below zero, they would be like, that's also
so not. Like if like especially because of this week, if I was like cool, but like you live in Vegas and it's really like you have no snow, it's nice all year, I'd be like,
You know what? 15 wives, sign me up.
Sign me up. Yeah. Let's get over there.
So let's wrap up because Greg's gonna send us something. Hopefully,
we didn't even talk. I did. There's a couple things I want to say about this house, and let's talk about it. So essentially, Mary bought this like family home. It's been a whole thing going back and forth. She wanted to buy this house. I don't know. We don't have to talk about the whole situation.
It's like an old West house, and it's going to be a bed and breakfast.
And I looked up.
How much was it worth?
I don't know. I didn't look up how much it was worth, but I looked up Parowan. It's a really small town. It was supposed to be like this. It was like a town that Mormon folk
tried to settle,
and it didn't really work out great. And now it's kind of just like a place that people go on vacation. But her great-great-grandfather or something, and it's a bed and breakfast, whatever. She bought the place.
Who cares?
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. She bought the place, didn't kind of...
Filled with Mormon ghosts.
That is the question that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
That place has to be haunted.
Maybe.
How haunted is it?
Don't Mormons go to, like, their own planet and stuff? Isn't that, like, the thing?
I mean...
I don't know. And if you're Mormon and you're listening to this, you should know that, like, I'm not trying to belittle your religion, but also, like, I don't really know anything about anything. And, like, do you get your own planet? Just let us know.
I mean, sure. Okay. But, like...
It's probably haunted, yes. Probably some, like, hook hand, like, you know.
Some mad-ass sister wives are in there.
No.
Come on.
Maybe. I don't know. We're going to do a Ghost Adventures episode coming up pretty soon. So if you're, like, a fan of, like, just listening to the episodes that are about different reality shows, Nicole's a huge Ghost Adventures fan, and we're going to definitely talk about
Okay,
Vegas.
So before we end, I know we're getting to it, and we just got, like, basically didn't really talk about this episode, but I did look up the actual house.
Okay.
So I Airbnb'd like Parowan. The general renting a place there is about $45 to $50 a night. The specific house that she is renting out, this bed and breakfast, is $125 a night. I do want to clarify that the Airbnb versus that place that she's renting out, this is a bed and breakfast, so we're getting breakfast, we're getting history, we're getting ambiance,
Paris,
we're getting
Milan. Yeah.
You know,
Ghosts,
sister wife
vibes,
ghosts, we're getting them all,
crystals.
but you can rent a place there for about $45 to $50 on Airbnb a night, and they are charging.
And honestly, that's a ripoff.
And I would 100% go $125 to stay with her mother and talk to her mother.
Your weird haircut.
Please, I mean, let's go easy
Tough
on
hair.
her mom. Let's
Tough
go
hair
easy on her mom.
She's wearing a wig. Wig it out. Wig it out, girl.
Whatever. And now, before we end, we missed your favorite part of the episode.
BW3s?
No. There was a point of this episode that you made me rewind at least 5 times and watch.
When he said bullshit?
There was a point when the ladies were talking, and essentially Mary had closed in the house and hadn't included any of her sister wives on that moment.
Yes. And then
Cody
was
gossiping.
like, they were gossiping, and Cody was like...
Not gossiping, they were arguing about it.
But Cody was like, you know, I've held my tongue on this, and I want to say something. And then, like, they were like...
Christine was
they shushed him, basically, and they were like, hold on, the women are talking. And then they did a cut shot to him in a diary session. He was like, I haven't said anything this whole time. I keep my fucking mouth shut.
Fucking.
And he said, like, this is bullshit. Which is the funniest thing, because it's like, sometimes you're at a thing with your wife, and, like... I love my wife, and, like, there are times when it's just like, I would love to say what I think, but it doesn't matter. My wife is having a conversation with another person, and even if I interject, she will be, like, perturbed that I'm giving my opinion. She doesn't want my opinion. She's heard my opinion.
Yeah.
And Cody has to feel this a lot of times, because he has 4 wives.
Yeah.
But it's also like, bro, you have 4 wives. You know what I mean? It's like somebody who has a boat, and then they're like, yeah, well, my boat broke down. You're like, yeah, buddy, you bought a boat. Like, that's what fucking happens, dude. Like, I thought that part was so funny that he was just like, well, my wives wouldn't let me talk. And it's like, well, you have 4 of them. So, like, you're going to have to wait your turn. You idiot.
Oh, there is one thing I want to say before we leave, but there is one more moment. Was this episode the one where he he was trying to get they were moving something, of course, because they move something in every episode, and they were trying to
he was trying to get something off of a boat, like weld something off of the front of a hitch.
He was trying to get a hitch onto a thing, and he had to just because he couldn't.
He had to get it off. Yeah.
That's his entire life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it, and then just 4 women yell at him, and that's it.
That's really complicated. You have to see it to know what she's talking about.
Anyway,
but
so before we go, I just want to say that I wanted to tell you Christine's children's names because
let's go.
Okay, Christine has okay. But I also need to spell them. So Christine's children's names are Aspen, and they are spelled Aspyn.
Okay.
McKelty, Mykelti.
Okay.
Gwendolyn, Gwendlyn. Isabel, Ysabel.
Okay, that's terrible.
Truly, Truely. And Paedon, Paedon.
That's terrible.
All right.
All right, thanks for listening. We're going to try and put in some of Greg Bach, who you can find out more about at MilwaukeeComedy.com. Catch me at Lakefront Brewery on Wednesday this week. And otherwise, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for listening to Welcome to Reality.